Hi, Sal. My name's Leo. I need my house wrapped. I braced for the hang-up. There was a pause, filled only by the sound of what might have been loud chewing. Your house? Like the whole shebang? Siding, gutters, the whole enchilada? Pretty much, yeah. Huh? More chewing. Why? So, I told him. The orange paint. The HOA. Brenda Periwinkle. The beige tyranny. The malicious compliance comic book idea. I laid it all out. There was another pause, longer this time. Then a loud bark of laughter erupted from the phone. No kidding. HOA's busting your chops over paint? So you want to turn your split level into the frickin' Hall of Justice? Something like that, I admitted, feeling a surge of hope. Maybe with some X-Men fighting sentinels on the garage door. Buddy, Sal declared, his voice filled with newfound respect. I like your style. I really like your style. This ain't gonna be cheap, you understand? We're talking custom design, massive print, scaffolding, the works, but damn, it's gonna be legendary. When can I come take a look? I'm standing on what is technically my lawn, hands planted firmly on my hips, squinting critically at my house. Or at least the section I'd just spent a glorious, sun-drenched Saturday painting. The color? Oh, it was a masterpiece. The can called it Solar Flare Orange. I called it Stick It to the Man Beige. It was bright, cheerful, maybe a tad aggressive if you were, say, a vampire or deeply committed to the color taupe. But damn, it felt good. Yeah, I muttered to a passing squirrel who looked vaguely judgmental. Take that, landlord beige. Take that, apartment putty. This bad boy screams I have arrived, and I have questionable taste. But damn it, it's my questionable taste. For the first time since signing away my soul and my savings for this slice of suburban paradise in Whispering Willows Estates, gag, I felt like I was actually home. No more asking permission to hang a picture frame. No more passive-aggressive notes about leaving my recycling bin out for an extra 5 minutes. This was mine. My mortgage, my leaky faucet, my soon-to-be gloriously orange house. The feeling lasted approximately 47 minutes. That's when the mail truck, usually a harbinger of junk mail and bills I planned to ignore, screeched to a halt with unusual urgency. The mail carrier, a woman named Deb, who normally looked perpetually bored, practically sprinted up my walkway clutching a single, stiff-looking envelope. A certified letter. Nothing good ever arrives via certified mail unless it's a prize notification. And let's be honest, my luck doesn't run that way. Special delivery, Mr. Maxwell, Deb said, avoiding eye contact with the offending orange patch, her voice tight. I signed for it, my stomach doing a nervous little flip-flop. Tore it open right there on the porch. The letterhead alone was enough to induce nausea. Whispering Willows, Homeowners Association, maintaining community harmony since 1998. Oh, harmony. Right. I scanned the neatly typed paragraphs. We're exterior modification. Article 4, Section 2B. Color palette out of compliance. Not in harmony with the community aesthetic. And the kicker? Paint color deemed excessively bold. Excessively bold? Excessively bold? It was orange, not radioactive waste. What did they want? Mildly disappointing mauve? Aggressively neutral grage? The letter helpfully informed me I had 14 days to repaint the offending section, and presumably abandon any future dreams of non-beige expression, using a color from the pre-approved list. I swear I could feel the soul-crushing weight of 50 shades of beige settling upon me right there on my porch. My initial disbelief curdled into pure, unadulterated annoyance. The Beige Brigade had struck. The Harmony Police were on the case. I could almost picture them, huddled in a secret bunker beneath the perfectly manicured community garden, plotting ways to enforce maximum blandness. I stormed inside, waving the letter like a battle standard. My girlfriend Chloe was attempting to assemble an IKEA bookshelf, a task requiring Zen-like patience I currently lacked. "You will not believe this," I declared, thrusting the letter at her. She glanced at it, then at me, then back at the inscrutable Swedish instructions. "Let me guess. The orange?" They called it excessively bold. I paced the living room, narrowly avoiding a collision with a rogue Allen wrench. Excessively? What does that even mean? Is there an acceptable level of bold? Like, slightly suggestive sienna is okay, but solar flare orange crosses the line into chromatic anarchy? Chloe sighed, tightening a screw with grim determination. "It is pretty bright, Leo." "It's cheerful. It's optimistic. It's the color of goddamn sunshine and maybe a traffic cone. But mostly sunshine. What do they want? Depression gray. Existential crisis cream." "Probably whispering willow white," she mumbled, consulting the diagram. "Or maybe manatee melancholy." I snatched the letter back, crumpling it slightly in my fist. 14 days. Fines would accrue thereafter. Daily fines. For paint. My paint. On my house. Okay, HOA, I thought. A dangerous little spark igniting somewhere behind my eyeballs. "Okay, Whispering Willows. You want to play? Let's play?" You know, buying this house felt like the final boss level of adulting. Chloe and I had spent months navigating the soul-crushing hellscape of the housing market. We'd seen places barely bigger than my old studio apartment listed for prices that could buy a small island nation. We'd endured bidding wars, inspections that uncovered horrors best left undisturbed, and realtors who spoke exclusively in optimistic euphemisms. Charming fixer-upper meant condemned. Cozy meant claustrophobic. Lots of potential meant bring a bulldozer. Whispering Willows seemed nice. Too nice, maybe. The lawns were unnervingly perfect, like green concrete. Every mailbox matched. There was a distinct lack of visible personality, a sort of Stepford Wives vibe, but with landscaping. But the house itself was solid, decent size, didn't smell overtly of mildew or despair. And the price was merely crippling, not instantly fatal. We got the keys, and with them, a binder. A thick, 3-ring binder ominously titled Whispering Willows Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. It weighed about 10 pounds and looked like it had been written by lawyers who billed by the word. I flipped through it, saw sections on lawn height, trash can placement, acceptable fence materials, and yes, exterior paint palettes. My eyes glazed over. "How bad can it be?" I'd said to Chloe, tossing the binder onto a box labeled kitchen stuff, probably useless gadgets. Famous last. Words. My grand plan wasn't exactly revolutionary. I just wanted the place to feel less anonymous, less like a holding cell between birth and death. The orange paint wasn't some punk rock statement. It was just a color I liked. I'd spent an hour at the hardware store, agonizing between solar flare orange and Caribbean dream teal, finally settling on the orange because it felt warmer. That was it. No hidden agenda, no desire to offend the delicate sensibilities of the beige brigade. Until they sent the letter, my first instinct, believe it or not, was to be reasonable. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe I could plead my case. So I decided to attend the monthly HOA meeting. It was held in the community clubhouse, a building whose architecture screamed beige ambition. The room was filled with about 20 people who looked varying degrees of bored, annoyed, or self-important. Presiding over the affair from a slightly elevated table was a woman with a helmet of perfectly lacquered gray hair, a floral print blouse buttoned up to her chin, and eyes that could probably curdle milk at 50 paces. This, I deduced, must be the infamous Brenda Periwinkle, HOA president. When the floor opened for resident concerns, I cleared my throat and stood up. Hi, Leo Maxwell, 12 Oak Street. I received a letter about my exterior paint. Brenda fixed me with a look usually reserved for insects discovered in one's soup. Ah, Mr. Maxwell. Yes, the orange? She said orange like it was a communicable disease. Right. See, I was hoping we could discuss it. It's just a small section and I really like the color. Adds a bit of cheer, you know? Brenda smiled. A thin, bloodless affair that didn't reach her eyes. Mr. Maxwell, the Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, Article 4, Section 2B clearly states, she practically sang the CC and Rs, that all exterior palettes must be selected from the pre-approved list to maintain neighborhood cohesion and protect property values. She tapped the binder sitting in front of her like it was the Holy Grail. Brenda, I tried, keeping my voice level. With all due respect, it's paint. It's a lovely paint. It makes the bees happy. Doesn't cohesion get a little boring? A few people shifted uncomfortably. One guy in the back wearing a fishing vest actually snorted softly before catching Brenda's glare. Cohesion, Brenda said, her voice dropping an octave, is what maintains the aesthetic integrity and, more importantly, the value of our community. The approved list offers a wide variety of harmonious and appropriate shades. She gestured vaguely, as if conjuring images of beige, taupe, and slightly different beige in the air. Failure to comply within the 14-day time frame, as stated in your notification, will result in daily fines of $50. $50 a day for paint. But isn't there any flexibility? I asked, desperation creeping in. Maybe an appeal process? The process, Brenda said with chilling finality, is to repaint your house using an approved color. Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Next concern? I sat down, fuming. The sheer, unadulterated pettiness of it all was staggering. Harmonious shades. Aesthetic integrity. It was a house, not the Sistine Chapel. As I stewed, a woman next to me, probably in her late 60s with kind eyes and bright pink lipstick, leaned over and whispered, "Don't let her get to you, honey. Brenda thinks anything brighter than oatmeal is garish." I left the meeting feeling utterly defeated and twice as angry. The first fine notification arrived 2 days later, crisp and official. Then another, and another. They piled up on the kitchen counter, mocking me with their bureaucratic indifference. The breaking point came about 10 days in. Another certified letter. This one was sterner, mentioning legal action and liens if the fines weren't paid and the violation wasn't rectified immediately. The total owed was already enough to make my eyes water. I was pacing the living room like a caged animal, ranting to Chloe, who was now wisely keeping her distance. They want harmony? I'll give them harmony. The harmony of a jackhammer orchestra, the symphony of spite. I swear, I'm gonna paint it beige, but like the ugliest beige imaginable. Puke beige, baby diaper beige. Deep breaths, Leo, Chloe advised from the relative safety of the kitchen doorway. I am breathing deeply, deeply inhaling the fumes of righteous indignation. I kicked an ottoman, stubbed my toe, and let out a string of curses that probably violated several other HOA bylaws regarding noise levels. Defeated, I slumped onto the couch. My eyes drifted to a stack of boxes in the corner, relics from my childhood bedroom that my mom had foisted upon me during my last visit. Mostly junk, probably. Action figures with missing limbs, questionable fashion choices preserved in faded photographs, and comics. On a whim, I pulled out a long box. Spider-Man, Batman, Wonder Woman, the X-Men, the Flash. The covers were explosions of color, dynamic poses, pure, unadulterated energy. A stark contrast to the beige prison whispering willows seemed determined to build around me. I was flipping through an old issue of The Amazing Spider-Man, admiring the vibrant reds and blues, when I glanced back at the latest threatening letter from the HOA, still clutched in my hand. It helpfully included, yet again, a link to the approved color palette. I clicked it on my phone out of morbid curiosity. Colonial blue, forest green, brick red, sunshine yellow, midnight black, pure white. Wait a minute. I looked from the phone screen to the comic book cover. Spider-Man's suit, red and blue, approved. I grabbed an X-Men comic. Wolverine's classic, yellow and blue, approved. Storm's black and white, approved. Jean Grey's green, approved. My brain started whirring. The gears, rusty from years of sensible adulting, began to grind and spark. The bylaws. They specified colors. They specified palettes. They obsessed over shades. But did they say anything about images? Did they say anything about how those approved colors had to be applied? Did they forbid, say, arranging colonial blue, brick red, and pure white into a giant image of Captain America throwing his mighty shield? An idea, terrible and beautiful, began to bloom in my mind. Malicious compliance on an epic scale. "Wait a second," I whispered, a slow, dangerous grin spreading across my face. "They hate solar flare orange, fine, but they approve regal blue, sunshine yellow, cherry red, emerald green. Basically the entire Justice League color scheme. They didn't say I couldn't use all of them, or that they couldn't form pictures. Oh, this is beautiful. This is poetic justice served with a side of spandex." The plan solidified instantly. Forget repainting. Forget beige. I was going to wrap my entire house in custom comic book murals, using only HOA-approved colors, of course. Technically compliant? Maybe. A giant four-color middle finger to Brenda and the Beige Brigade? Absolutely. It was art. It was protest. It was going to be hilarious. The first step was finding someone crazy enough to do it. My search history quickly became a bizarre mix of large-format vinyl printing, building wraps, and can you wrap a house like a car? The phone calls were enlightening. "Wrap Masters, Dave speaking." "Hi, Dave. I have kind of an unusual request. I want to wrap my house." "Excuse me?" "My house, like the whole building. Vinyl wrap, like you do for buses?" "You want to wrap your house, like a car?" "Exactly, but bigger, and with more Superman." "Sir, I think you have the wrong number." Click. Next call. "Precision Graphics. How can I help?" "Hi, I'm looking to get a full vinyl wrap for my two-story colonial." "Okay. Signage? Advertising?" "Sort of. More like comic book panels. Really big ones." "A whole house wrap? In comic panels? The liability insurance alone? The wind shear, the squirrels. Sorry, buddy. Can't help you." Click. I was starting to lose hope. Maybe this was too insane, even for the world of custom graphics. Then, I stumbled upon a website with flashing text, questionable font choices, and a gallery filled with pictures of monster trucks covered in flames and food trucks shaped like giant tacos. Wrap Daddy Graphics. If you can dream it, we can wrap it. Probably. I dialed, bracing for rejection. A loud, slightly distorted voice answered after one ring. "Wrap Daddy, Sal here. What you need wrapped, Chief?" Hi Sal, my name's Leo. I need my house wrapped." I braced for the hang-up. There was a pause, filled only by the sound of what might have been loud chewing. "Your house? Like the whole shebang? Siding, gutters, the whole enchilada?" "Pretty much, yeah." "Huh?" More chewing. "Why?" "So," I told him. "The orange paint. The HOA. Brenda Periwinkle. The beige tyranny. The malicious compliance comic book idea. I laid it all out. There was another pause, longer this time. Then, a loud bark of laughter erupted from the phone. No dollar hash. Percent? HOA's busting your chops over paint? So you want to turn your split level into the frickin' Hall of Justice? Something like that, I admitted, feeling a surge of hope. Maybe with some X-Men fighting sentinels on the garage door. Buddy, Sal declared, his voice filled with newfound respect. I like your style. I really like your style. This ain't gonna be cheap, you understand? We're talking custom design, massive prints, scaffolding, the works. But damn, it's gonna be legendary. When can I come take a look? Sal turned out to be exactly what you'd expect from the owner of Rap Daddy Graphics. Mid-50s, ponytail, faded band t-shirt straining over a generous belly, perpetually chewing gum. He arrived in a van covered in peeling decals of dragons and race cars. He walked around my house, whistling softly, occasionally poking the siding. Yeah, we can do this, he declared, rubbing his hands together. Gonna need measurements, photos from all angles. You got ideas for the art? Did I ever? We spent the next week in a whirlwind of creative energy. Sal had a surprisingly talented graphic designer named Mikey who worked remotely. He's nocturnal, Sal explained. We had Zoom calls filled with me holding up comic books to the camera. Okay, front door, I'd say. Gotta be iconic. Superman bursting through, maybe? Mikey, a pale young man who looked like he hadn't seen sunlight in years, would nod slowly. Okay, but which Superman? Classic Fleischer, Byrne, New 52 Classic! Keep it classic! Big S, And the colors, I emphasized repeatedly. We gotta use the approved colors. See this blue on Superman's suit? That's colonial blue according to the HOA swatch. The red is brick red. The yellow is sunshine yellow. Sal cackled. This is the best damn job I've ever had. We designed each side meticulously. The front was DC Comics tribute, Superman, Batman peering down from the roofline, Wonder Woman deflecting something with her bracelets over the living room window, Flash racing along the foundation. The left side was Marvel Hulk smashing, a beige wall, naturally, Spider-Man swinging from an upstairs window, Captain America's shield gleaming on the chimney. The right side was X-Men focused, featuring that Sentinel battle on the garage door I wanted. The back. Well, we got a little obscure on the back. Hellboy sharing a pizza with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Why not? We made sure every square inch utilized colors from the approved list, even if it was just a tiny highlight or background element. It was a masterpiece of malicious compliance. Sal gave me the quote. I choked. It was roughly equivalent to the down payment on a small car. Or, you know, enough to pay Brenda's stupid fines for a very long time. Worth it? Chloe asked, raising an eyebrow when she saw the number. I looked at the design mock-ups Mikey had sent over. My boring suburban house transformed into a vibrant, chaotic, glorious monument to comic book art and petty revenge. Oh, I said, grinning like an idiot. It's gonna be so worth it. D-Day. Or maybe V-Day for vinyl. The Rap Daddy Graphics truck, even larger and more ostentatiously decorated than Sal's personal van, rumbled down Oak Street just after dawn. It was followed by a flatbed carrying a mountain of scaffolding. The noise alone was enough to wake the dead, or at least the early rising members of the Whispering Willows Neighborhood Watch. Within an hour, my house looked like it was undergoing major surgery. Scaffolding clung to its sides like a metal exoskeleton. Sal and his crew, a motley bunch sporting Rap Daddy t-shirts and varying levels of enthusiasm, started unrolling massive sheets of printed vinyl. The first piece to go up was Superman's iconic S shield, right over the front door. It was enormous, and undeniably blue and red, Approved colors. The curtains started twitching. First Mrs. Henderson at number 10, then Mr. Gable at number 14. Phones were produced. Texts were likely sent. By 9 a.m., a small cluster of neighbors had gathered at the end of my driveway, whispering and pointing. Their expressions ranged from bewildered amusement to outright horror. And then, right on cue, a golf cart came whizzing around the corner, driven with alarming speed. At the helm, wearing a visor and a look of grim determination, was Brenda Periwinkle. She slammed on the brakes, sending up a spray of perfectly manicured lawn clippings, and vaulted out with surprising agility for someone who probably considered power walking an extreme sport. "Mr. Maxwell!" she shrieked, her voice tight with fury. She marched towards the scaffolding, ignoring Sal, who was trying to direct a tricky corner piece. "What is the meaning of this cartoon monstrosity?" I strolled out, sipping my coffee, aiming for an air of nonchalant innocence. "Morning, Brenda. Lovely day for some home improvement, isn't it?" She jabbed a finger towards the giant S. "Don't you lovely day me. What is that?" "Oh, this?" I gestured vaguely at the growing mural. "Just updating the exterior, Brenda. Sprucing things up. Using lovely approved colors, see?" I pointed to Superman's cape. "That's brick red, straight off the list. And the blue, pure colonial blue. Fully compliant." Sal, sensing his moment, swaggered over, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Yeah, lady, fully compliant wrap job. Top quality vinyl. UV resistant, weatherproof. Good for 5, maybe 7 years." He winked at me. Brenda looked like she was about to spontaneously combust. Her face went from pale to puce. "This is not compliant. This is visual anarchy. It's an affront to common decency. I'm calling the authorities." She whipped out her phone, stabbing at the screen with a trembling finger. "Authorities?" I raised an eyebrow. "Brenda, what crime do you think is being committed here? Aggravated awesomeness? Felony fun?" Sal snorted. Brenda ignored me, speaking frantically into her phone. "Yes, police? I need to report a disturbance, a violation, a graphic situation." 20 minutes later, a police cruiser rolled slowly down the street. 2 officers got out, looking profoundly weary, like they'd been expecting a hostage situation and instead found, well, this. Officer Miller, tall and stern-looking, surveyed the scene. The scaffolding, the giant vinyl sheets, the growing comic book tableau, the sputtering HOA president, the amused contractor, and me, the homeowner trying desperately not to laugh. Officer Rodriguez, younger and shorter, just looked baffled. "Okay, folks," Officer Miller began, his voice carefully neutral. "What seems to be the, situation here?" Brenda launched into a tirade. "Officer, he's violating HOA bylaws. Look at this. This eyesore. It's depreciating property values. It's tacky." "Officers," I said calmly, stepping forward, "it's my house. I'm decorating it using materials that adhere to the color guidelines set forth by the HOA, which is a civil matter anyway. Is there a city ordinance against awesome comic book art that I'm unaware of?" Officer Rodriguez glanced at the house, then at Officer Miller, a tiny smile playing on his lips. He shrugged almost imperceptibly. "Ma'am," Officer Miller said, addressing Brenda with the practiced patience of someone who deals with absurdity for a living. "As long as it's not violating any city ordinances, public indecency, hate speech, structural safety issues, this is a civil matter between Mr. Maxwell and his homeowners association. We can't—" He gestured vaguely at the half-wrapped house. "Unwrap his house for you." "But it's tacky!" Brenda wailed, sounding genuinely distraught. "Tackiness isn't currently a criminal offense in this state, ma'am," Officer Miller said, his expression unchanging. "Unless there's an actual crime being committed, our hands are tied. Have a nice day." He and Officer Rodriguez got back in their cruiser. As they pulled away, I could have sworn I saw Officer Rodriguez chuckling. Brenda stood there, momentarily stunned into silence, watching them leave. Then she turned back to me, her eyes narrowed into slits. "This isn't over, Maxwell," she hissed, before spinning on her heel and stomping back to her golf cart. "Oh, I know, Brenda," I muttered under my breath as Sal slapped another giant vinyl panel into place, this one featuring the Hulk mid-smash. "I think it's just beginning." The installation took 3 full days. 3 days of scaffolding, the whir of heat guns sealing vinyl, Sal yelling instructions, and a steady stream of curious onlookers. My house transformed, panel by glorious panel. The sheer, vibrant audacity of it was breathtaking. When the scaffolding finally came down, revealing the finished product, even I was a little stunned. It was a lot. From the street, my previously unremarkable suburban house now looked like a comic book had exploded and permanently fused with its structure. Superman seemed to fly off the porch roof. Batman brooded from the second-story eaves. Spider-Man swung gracefully across the living room wall. The garage doors depicted an epic battle between the X-Men and towering Sentinels, lasers firing, claws extended. It was bright, chaotic, and utterly undeniably mine. Neighbor reactions were, shall we say, mixed. Old Mr. Henderson from across the street, a man I'd previously only seen tending his prize-winning roses in silence, gave me a slow, deliberate thumbs up. A group of teenagers on bikes stopped, took about 50 selfies, and declared it sick, which I gathered was a compliment. Mrs. Gable, however, peeked through her blinds and then slammed them shut with unnecessary force. Several others just stared, mouths agape, unsure how to process this technicolor invasion of their beige reality. Chloe came home from work, pulled into the driveway, got out of her car, and just stood there for a solid minute. "Wow," she finally said, tilting her head. "It's really something." "Something good?" I asked nervously. She walked up, looped her arm through mine, and surveyed our comic book castle. "It's ridiculous. It's insane. It's probably going to make Brenda have an aneurysm." She grinned. "I love it." That night, sleeping felt different. It felt like sleeping inside a statement, a loud 4-color HOA infuriating statement. The calm lasted less than 24 hours. An email arrived, subject line screaming in all caps, "Emergency HOA board meeting, urgent, 12 Oak Street exterior modification." Apparently, my house had officially become agenda item number 1. The emergency meeting was held, once again, in the beige bunker of the community clubhouse. This time, the atmosphere wasn't just tense, it was electric. Brenda Periwinkle sat at the head table, flanked by 2 equally severe-looking board members. Her face was set in grim lines, the floral blouse replaced by a militant-looking navy blazer. The room was packed, more neighbors than I'd ever seen at a meeting before, drawn by the scent of drama and vinyl. I saw the whisperer with the pink lipstick give me a subtle wink. Even the fishing vest guy was back. I decided to bring backup. Sal, smelling faintly of vinyl adhesive and chewing gum with ferocious intensity, sat beside me, looking thoroughly amused. Brenda banged a gavel that seemed far too large for her. "This emergency meeting has been called to address the situation at 12 Oak Street." Her eyes swept the room, daring anyone to find humor in the situation. "Mr. Maxwell has installed an unauthorized large-scale graphic application to the entirety of his home's exterior, in flagrant disregard for community standards and aesthetics." "Objection!" Sal boomed unexpectedly, making several people jump. Brenda glared at him. "Not a courtroom, Sal," I muttered. "Point of order, then," Sal corrected, puffing out his chest. "My client," he gestured towards me, used only HOA-approved colors, as stipulated in your own dang rulebook. The colors may be technically listed, Brenda conceded through gritted teeth, but the manner in which they have been applied constitutes a grotesque violation of the spirit, if not the precise letter, of the CC&Rs. It's an eyesore, a blight. One man's blight is another man's bat signal, Brenda, I countered, leaning into the microphone. Look, the rules mention approved colors. They don't mention how those colors are arranged. Is it my fault the approved palette is basically the same as the Justice League's? I held up the official HOA paint swatch card next to a picture of Superman on my phone. See? Colonial blue, brick red, sunshine yellow, perfectly compliant. A murmur went through the crowd. Some chuckles, some horrified gasps. Neighbor 1, pro-Brenda, a man whose lawn was suspiciously greener than everyone else's. It's lowering the tone of the entire neighborhood. My realtor says it could impact resale value. Neighbor 2, pink lipstick lady. Oh, lighten up, George. Honestly, Brenda, it's more interesting than another beige box. My grandkids love it. Fishing vest guy. Yeah, I kinda like the Hulk. The meeting devolved into chaos. Accusations flew. Brenda waved the CC&R binder like a weapon. Sal kept yelling, "Point of order!" I argued artistic expression, malicious compliance, and the simple fact that it was my damn house. The board members looked increasingly uncomfortable. Just as Brenda was about to call for a vote on levying massive, unprecedented fines, a phone buzzed loudly. It belonged to a young woman near the front. Her eyes widened as she looked at her screen. Excuse me?" she said hesitantly. "You guys might want to see this." She turned her phone around. It was a local news website. The headline read, "Suburban Showdown, Man Wraps House in Comic Books to Fight Too Bold HOA." Below it was a picture of my house in all its graphic glory. A collective gasp went through the room. Brenda went pale. Apparently, one of the teenagers taking selfies had a parent who worked at the local TV station. The story was quirky, visual, and irresistible. David versus Goliath, but with more spandex. Within hours, it wasn't just local news. It was trending on Twitter. #ComicHouse #HOA Wars. A news van parked down the street. A reporter, a woman with impossibly perfect hair and a microphone, was doing a live stand-up in front of my garage, trying to explain the X-Men/Sentinel battle behind her. The HOA, and Brenda in particular, suddenly looked less like defenders of community standards and more like petty tyrants getting their comeuppance on the evening news. The narrative had shifted. I wasn't just some weirdo. I was a folk hero fighting for the right to not be beige. The next day, another letter arrived. Not fines this time. This one was from the HOA's lawyers. It was dense with legalese, threatening injunctions, lawsuits, liens, and probably plagues of locusts. It demanded the immediate removal of the offending installation. Time to lawyer up. Finding a lawyer willing to take on the case of the comic book house wasn't easy. Most listened politely, then gently suggested I just remove the wrap. Then I found Larry. Larry's office was above a pizza place, cluttered with sci-fi memorabilia, and featured a lava lamp bubbling ominously on his desk. His website described his specialty as unusual litigations and righteous causes. I explained the situation. Larry listened intently, stroking a plastic tribble on his desk. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, a huge grin spreading across his face. "Let me get this straight," he said, his eyes twinkling. "The Homeowners Association, custodians of the sacred beige, are suing you because your house is too awesome?" He slammed his hand on the desk. "I love it! This is beautiful! We'll argue it's protected artistic expression under the First Amendment. We'll cite landmark pop art cases. We'll subpoena Brenda Periwinkle and ask her to define aesthetic harmony under oath. This is gonna be fun!" He quoted me a retainer that made Sal's invoice look like pocket change, but he did it with such infectious enthusiasm I couldn't say no. Larry was my kind of crazy. The battle raged, not with vinyl and paint, but with legal filings and strongly worded letters between Larry and the HOA's much more expensive, much less fun lawyers. The local news continued to follow the story with glee. My house became a minor tourist attraction. People drove by slowly, taking pictures. Someone left a bouquet of flowers on the porch with a note. "Stay bold." The pressure on the HOA was immense. They were hemorrhaging money on legal fees. Their meetings were becoming increasingly fractious, and they were universally portrayed in the media as killjoy villains. Brenda Periwinkle, once the undisputed queen of Whispering Willows, was reportedly facing a coup from within the board. The whispers suggested even her staunchest allies were tired of the negative attention and mounting costs. Then, one Tuesday morning, a plain white envelope arrived. No certified mail this time. Inside was a brief, curt letter from the HOA board. It stated that, after careful consideration and legal consultation, the board had determined that while the exterior modification at 12 Oak Street was unconventional, it did not technically violate the explicit wording of the existing CC and Rs regarding approved color palettes. Therefore, they would be withdrawing their legal threats and ceasing all violation notices related to the wrap. They did mention, almost as an afterthought, that they would be forming a committee to review and potentially clarify the bylaws regarding large-scale graphic installations in the future. Translation: we give up, you win. Please make the news vans go away. I read it twice. Then I called Larry. "We won?" I asked, slightly stunned. "Won?" Larry boomed. "We crushed them. We buried them under the sheer weight of awesomeness and First Amendment principles. They folded like cheap lawn chairs in a hurricane. Victory." Sal sent me a congratulatory text consisting solely of superhero emojis. Chloe bought champagne. Even Mrs. Gable gave me a curt nod the next time she saw me, which I took as the suburban equivalent of a white flag. Life in Whispering Willows settled into a new normal. My house remained gloriously, ridiculously wrapped in comic book art. It became known simply as Comic House. Teenagers thought I was cool, which was a novel experience. Some neighbors still avoided eye contact, but others became friendlier, united by the shared experience of the great vinyl uprising, or maybe just enjoying the absurdity of it all. Brenda Periwinkle resigned as HOA president shortly thereafter, citing a desire to spend more time with her beige swatches. I ran into Sal a few months later at the hardware store. He was buying spray paint chrome, naturally. "Told you it'd be legendary, kid," he said, punching my shoulder playfully. "Yeah, well, you didn't tell me I'd have strangers knocking on the door asking if Batman lives here," I grumbled good-naturedly. Sal grinned, his ponytail bouncing. "Does he?" "Only on Tuesdays," I deadpanned. "Alfred needs a break." So here I am, sitting on my porch, the late afternoon sun glinting off Captain America's shield on the chimney. My house is still wrapped. It's faded a bit, maybe, but still undeniably epic. The HOA hasn't bothered me since the surrender. They did pass a new rule about exterior graphic installations exceeding 10% of any single facade, clearly aimed at preventing copycats, but my wrap was grandfathered in. A monument to a loophole. Was it worth it? The cost, the stress, the near aneurysm moments during HOA meetings? Absolutely. It started with a can of solar flare orange and a petty letter. It escalated into something I never could have predicted. A battle for the soul of suburbia, fought with vinyl panels and legal briefs. It wasn't just about the paint, not really. It was about that feeling I had on that first day, the feeling of this place being mine. The HOA tried to take that away, tried to impose their bland, beige will. And I fought back in the most ridiculous, colorful way imaginable. I made my house reflect me. A little nerdy, kind of sarcastic, and definitely not beige. So yeah, the HOA called my paint too bold. Maybe it was. But sometimes you gotta go bolder. Sometimes you gotta wrap your whole damn house in superheroes just to feel like you belong, even if it means becoming a local legend, and the reason your neighborhood has a specific bylaw against giant Hulk murals. Would I recommend it? Probably not. My property taxes might go up, and explaining it to future buyers could be interesting. But man, watching the sunrise hit the Hulk's abs? Totally worth it. Now, what color should I paint the mailbox? Maybe plaid? Yeah, Brenda would hate plaid.